Hello, and welcome to the Honest Walk podcast, a place where we can get honest with God, about God, and with each other. I'm your host, Jasmine. So I wanted this to feel like if you were sitting down with me and we were drinking coffee or tea and just talking about God and where He kind of has us in this season of life. And I do have my coffee with me, so I will be sipping it. So I feel like at this point in my life, God has me in this season of waiting on Him. There had been a long stretch of time, weeks, where I was just really desiring to feel His presence. I was seeking Him every morning and every evening and all in between, just praying and worshiping Him and just spending time with Him, spending time reading my Bible. And I just wasn't feeling anything. And I know that it's not about feeling God, but there have been times throughout my life where I can physically feel His presence and His nearness. For me, it feels like this shudder from the top of my head or the top of my shoulders down my arms or down my body. And I'm not chilly. And I've experienced this throughout my life. It's just this little reminder, and I have this sense of knowing that God is near. And of course, God is always near. He indwells within us. He is Emmanuel, God with us. He says, never will He leave us nor forsake us. And yet I had been continuing to seek His presence and just trying to keep spending time with Him, keep reaching out to Him, not really expecting to feel anything. And I feel like in that time, God really was asking me to mature. At some point, when we become believers and followers of Jesus, there comes a time where He calls us to grow up in a sense, to not always be seeking signs and wonders, to not always be seeking to have our physical senses rewarded with the things of the Spirit. And in that time, I was still reaching out to God because I love Him. I want to spend time with Him, even if I can't feel Him or hear Him. And in a sense, I was maturing. In some ways, in many ways, God is like our commanding officer. If you think about being in the military, if your commanding officer tells you to do something, then you go out and you do it, even if they're not physically with you. You don't get the radio or the walkie-talkie and say, commanding officer, are you there? Are you there? Are you with me? Are you there? I'm going to do this thing. You said to do it, right? That's what you want me to do? Are you sure? No, you go and you do it. And I feel a lot of the time with God, it's the same way, that God has asked us to do certain things. And instead of doing them, we are spending so much time saying, God, are you there? Do you hear me? Do you even care? I can't feel you. When He's given us His word, and in it all the things that He asks of us, to love Him and to love people, to have humility and grace, to forgive, to walk in truth and mercy and love. All of these things He has given us. And I feel like He wants us to operate in more of a knowing of this, that we know God's with us and we operate in that we know what God has asked us to do in His word, and we can operate off of that, not needing to doubt or to question or to wonder or to hope that God is there, to hope that He cares, to hope that he knows what he's doing. Because he is, and he does. And he wants us to mature and operate in that. A good physical imagery of this is, being here in Alaska, we can see the Alaskan range not too far from our house on a clear blue sky day, much like today. I can't see the mountains from my house, but just a short drive down the road and we can see them. But there are days, weeks even, where they're covered in clouds. Whether it's just a cloudy day or it's snowing or raining, as we've had a lot of rainy days this winter. It's been very strange. And you kind of forget about them. You're focused on just, when you can't see them, all you see are clouds, and then you see a tree line, and that's it. It's as if there aren't any mountains at all, which is crazy, because Denali is the tallest mountain in North America, and when you can see it, it takes up half of the sky. But there are times when you don't, seasons when you don't, and then out of nowhere, I'll be driving up and down this main road that we use to get in and out of our little town, and I'll see them, and it'll be striking. I mean, the mountains are glorious and sharp and majestic, and if you're really, really blessed, you can see these beautiful colors on them, peaches and pinks, and if the sunlight is hitting it just right, and it's glorious. And it's moved me to tears more times than I can count, because every time that happens, when I don't see the mountains for a while and then I see them, God speaks to my heart and he says, I'm here. I was always there. And I know that he's always there. Even while I'm speaking now, he's here with me and with you. And it's such a beautiful reminder of his faithfulness. And so after I'd been going through this season of time, just seeking God, seeking his face and not really feeling anything, the sky cleared. It was last night. I was up late, waiting to switch out the laundry because I didn't want it to sit in the washing machine all night, and I had been doing laundry all night anyways. And so I decided to stay up and wait for that last load to switch over to the dryer. And I was listening to worship music. Normally I listen to instrumental worship music, just so I don't have to focus on the words. I can just let the music speak. And Dappy T Keys is really good if you like instrumental piano, or often I'll listen to my YouTube channel, Simple Reflections. I have instrumental piano on there. And that's what I was listening to, actually. I was listening to that last night, and out of nowhere, it just hit me. Just these waves and waves of his presence out of nowhere. And I was not expecting it, and I didn't understand why it wasn't doing anything different or special. And just those waves over my body from head to toe, like, being in the ocean. And I just had this feeling of, like, who am I? Who am I that God cares for me so much and loves me and graces me with his presence, with a reminder that he's with me? Who am I that Christ died for me and all my sinfulness and my flesh, and I just felt so unworthy and still so blessed in that moment. And I immediately just, from my heart, just was speaking and adoring and worshiping God, because he is better than we think he is. He's better than anything. And his presence is all that we really, really desire in this world. If you think about all the things that we may want to feel in the world, acceptance, love, joy, pleasure, peace, all of these things. All the ways that we come to find them in the world are short-lived. And in the end, they don't satisfy, not forever. But just being with God, it is like a golden ticket. And it is so, so satisfying to know that you're loved and accepted and forgiven and chosen and created, and that God has this amazing plan for our lives and for us to use us for His glory. And I felt so grateful in that moment to be able to just experience His presence. And still, even though that happened, I don't. And I can't expect to always experience that. Because God calls us to walk by faith and not by sight. To walk by what He's told us and what we know about Him, and not just what we see and hear. But it's like those little glimmers along the way while we're walking in the darkness, like a little firefly. It may be pitch black around us, and then we see that little firefly lighting up the sky, and we remember, oh, there's still goodness. Oh, God's still here. He still cares. Because it can feel like a very, very dark place sometimes living here. Just spend 5 minutes looking on the news and you will think that the world's ending tomorrow and there's no hope. And that's exactly what the enemy wants us to think. But greater is He that is in us than is in the world. But the works of the enemy may seem great, but the works of God are greater. I hope that this encouraged you, and I can't wait to speak with you again. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me, and God bless you all.